Marketing is already challenging, so make your life easier by avoiding these mistakes. So you want to build a brand, you want to grow your business, and you are trying to get to grips with how to market in a way that feels like it's effective and like it's really working. Let's talk about the things that I commonly see that I would recommend you do your best to avoid, right? So what's the context? Where have I seen this happen? I have worked in many roles. I have led marketing and social teams. I have run teams in agencies. I have also run my own consultancy where I have worked with dozens of businesses, well over 25, 30 businesses, and spoken to so many founders, met so many different personalities. And there's a couple of things that I always observe that I'm like, I wish I could give you a playbook to make this easier and highlight that some of the things you're thinking, you're not on your own in terms of thinking them. Those are some of the challenges that many founders or many marketing leads face, but also how to get out of it quickly, right? And these are my thoughts. I would love to know if you agree, disagree, if you've got any other things that you've observed that you were like, you know what, we need to cut that out. So let's talk about a couple of them, right? Number one is analysis paralysis. This is the desire to want to research every single thing and also maybe even do every single thing in the first 90 days, in the first half a year. You actually just cannot, especially if you have a smaller team. When I say smaller, if your marketing team is under like 10, which most of us are, it can be really tough. And I think that sometimes I talk to people and they want to talk about everything. They're like, it's day 0. We haven't even launched yet. We need to make sure we're doing ads. We need to make sure we're doing social media. We need to do influencer. We want to do an event. We need to get our branding right. I want to do these 10 types of different Instagram pieces of content. I want to do all of this on TikTok. I want to do this and this and this and this. And I love that. First of all, I love a founder. I love a team lead who does their research. I think sometimes when you know that you don't know something, you want to make sure all your bases are covered. And that is completely understandable and should be done, by the way. It's very important to at least like get a lay of the land and understand the types of different levers that you should be pulling. At the same time, I think that can make life very hard because unless you are launching a company where you can put a couple of these people in place, when I say people, I mean people who know what they're doing in email marketing, in influencer, in paid, in TikTok and Instagram. If you don't have that, you try to do that all on your own, it's going to overwhelm you. It's going to make you feel like you're not doing anything right. And it's even going to stop you from doing anything because you're going to try and dip your toe into all of these things. And there are whole companies and careers made out of like one segment of those things. Why do you think you would be able to do all of them from day one on your own? So it's good to do the research. And then it's good to almost brain dump that list, that bucket list of things you should be doing. And then quickly move away and start action in one area. Another element of analysis paralysis is actually wanting to have loads of research about something, which is not always the smartest. People say research, but like, let me give you an example. So let's say I am launching a hair accessories brand, right? And I have done the research about, you know, what's the size of the hair accessories brand market? Typically, what types of hair accessories tend to do well or have a bigger addressable audience of people buying it. There are some must-have things that you should do in terms of like researching and getting an understanding of the industry you're operating in. Great. But then people quickly move to, but I need to get my own research. Should I do surveys and focus groups and all of these things? And they spend a lot of time in that research phase. You already have, when it comes to research, and again, I'm thinking about balancing your resources. When it comes to research, you already have an immense world of research already done for you. And it's called secondary research, right? You can buy it, you can search it up online, and that is a good starting point. Sometimes people then get really tied up in doing 100 focus groups, trying to get data from 1,000 people. It's helpful and it's definitely informative, but you are going to be learning constantly, to be honest, and we all are, how to balance the two. So for example, most of us will start a business out of a need that we have observed in our community. Let's say you have grown up in a particular city where it's very, very hard to get your culture. Maybe you're in the diaspora and you want your home culture's food. You already know that, okay, what I would do in that sense is I would look at, okay, what is the size of, let's say, the West African demographic in this area that I'm trying to serve? what's then the size of maybe the South Asian demographic that I'm trying to serve there, and also try and figure out like, okay, if I was to fill this need that I'm experiencing of having my home foods in the city that I'm in, hopefully there's enough people to buy it, right? And I think that's justified research, because there's no point in launching it where maybe you're the only family or you're the only person of that culture or similar cultures, and then there's no one to sell it to. But then you may then say, okay, but actually I want to talk to all the other people in my audience and demographic from different cities and understand what they need, right? I think you could probably assume from your cultural background that people from the diaspora would love to have access to their cultural foods in general. I don't think you need to, and some people might disagree with me in this video, so I don't think you need to now, especially again, this is about resources. As a small business, let's say there's 3 of you in the business, now need to go and knock on everybody's doors in 5 surrounding cities to do that. You need to be able to just research where are those people and get that already exists. You don't have to go to all the effort to do that. And I would start there and I would learn as I go. I think this is the final thing I'd say on analysis paralysis, which is looking at data isn't bad. I actually love data. It's all about the sequencing. If you are spending so much time, if you find that now you've had an idea, it's been 6 months, it's been 7 months, it's been 8 months, and it depends on your industry, because I think if you're also developing, let's say, a new tech solution, it's a different set of testing that needs to happen. It's a different set of development and like user validation and all of that stuff that you have to do. You have to go through different phases of testing to make things make sense. But even in that world, you also need MVPs, but we'll talk about MVPs shortly. But when we think about especially consumer-facing brands, which is typically a lot of the space that I touch, or any brand that may even be a tech brand or a media brand, which I've worked with, but they really want to be in culture and they want to face the consumer, you can triangulate enough data to have enough to start with and test that out. If you find that you're in this analysis phase and you've not done any single other thing that relates to like getting a sale or getting someone closer to a sale, you are beginning to face analysis paralysis, unless you have been given a budget where you can spend 6 months, 10 months doing research and nothing else. If that's the case, then definitely go for it. But if you're looking at trying to build traction, you should try and do those things hand in hand and allocate your time accordingly. Which leads me to my next point, which is also connected, which is really about a lack of focus, which is tricky. All these things are hard. Like, it's easy to say, and I think that's why I'm saying it, because I think we all know these things deep down, but when you have someone else saying it to you, it can kind of get you thinking, okay, like, let me just level set again. Let me just rethink my approach. A lack of focus is a really interesting one. I understand why we do it, because we're trying not to miss anything. The truth is, especially at launch, you can't be all things to all people. Many of us don't have the time, the resources, and the bandwidth to try and do all of the things, right? We have to be really focused. And I think a good example of this is the brand Made by Mitchell. So Made by Mitchell is a very successful TikTok led brand, and they are now stocked across Boots across the UK, but they are also in the US, they're in Ireland, they're in the Middle East, and they're doing a bunch of different things, and all really well and like pretty from the ground up, which is like amazing to see. And I remember watching an interview with the founder, Mitchell, and he said that in his mind, when he started the business, which was probably about 5 years ago now, he could see that TikTok was like where people were getting traction and reach and like virality. So he was just like, I'm not going to do Instagram yet. I'm just going to do TikTok, and I'm just going to focus on that. And that skyrocketed his business. Now, many of us starting, especially 5 years ago, would have been like, but Instagram's like where the cool things are. And then actually, maybe I should get Pinterest. And then actually, maybe I should be on LinkedIn. Okay, wait, maybe I should also be on Discord. Maybe I should also be on Reddit. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And all of those things, again, they're not bad. It's just about balancing it with the capacity that you have. Mitchell was just like, I'm just going to do TikTok. That's all I can do. That's where I'm seeing momentum in terms of like, as a user, I'm seeing lots of people getting good reach there. I'm just going to do that. And he started there, right? And he has like 1 million followers on his personal Instagram account. So it's actually crossed over. And there's a balance to this. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket for too long, but emphasis on too long, right? Because he started on TikTok, and then arguably, I don't know how much he's diversified, but if I was him, I would then diversify once I've reached a certain level of saturation. It's trying to do all of them when you haven't reached a certain level of saturation that can be challenging. Now, I typically don't focus only on one channel. I'll focus on maybe two if I can, but one of them will still be the priority, especially if we're trying to make completely different content for both platforms. But this doesn't only reflect in your content strategy. This should also reflect in your product strategy as well. And I've spoken about this in a previous episode, which I'll link, is 1 to 3 product strategy has never led me astray. And I think especially as a newer business, and even when you think about drops, maybe you already have, let's say, 10 different products in your product line and you want to release something new. Maybe instead of releasing 20 new things in a year, really focus on 3 things and release 3 different variants of the same thing. It's case by case. And I think all of this stuff that I discussed here is about starting points to get you thinking. No business is the same, and they're not the same because the resources are different. And that's not just the size of the team and the money. That's also the natural or the gained knowledge of the people who are working in the space as well. Some people, it makes sense for them to start on 4 platforms because maybe they are a creator-led business that already has traction on all 4, you know? It's about being able to focus on your specific strategy and not getting distracted by what somebody else is doing. And this kind of leads me to my third pitfall, which is focusing only on what looks like sexy and attractive when it comes to marketing. Oh my gosh, this is a big miss. Big miss. And that could mean many things. Things that look sexy include things that are very front facing. So for example, sometimes people will want to do loads of panel discussions and talks when actually they've missed actually talking to their audience and getting on the ground and getting feedback. Sometimes people will want to focus on the big campaigns rather than focusing on like the day-to-day education and getting to know your audience. Sometimes people want to focus on what's the next trending sound that's going to get me 1 million views instead of being like, actually, I'm just going to post my 1 piece of content a day and keep the steady beat. The foundation is everything. Foundations, especially in marketing, are essential because they compound. Sometimes virality, obviously, when you look at like a path, when you look at a line graph of like a trend, right? If let's say this was the views I was getting, views, and then something just went viral and shot me up in my views up here, we should obviously be learning from what's working there, and how can I replicate that? So maybe now my line chart is a bit higher. Maybe it's still consistent and it doesn't shoot up again, but let's say it's gone like this, shoots up and then comes up here. You definitely want that. But I think what can happen is virality is never made in a vacuum. Virality is actually typically the result of like compounding moments. And people don't talk about that a lot, again, because it's not sexy, it's not interesting. If I say to you like, oh, when you suddenly get a big moment, it's because of all these tiny little boring building blocks where you felt like no one was looking at what you were doing. That's not an interesting story. That's not exciting. It feels a bit like, well, I'm going to have to do all the same boring thing every day in order to get this big moment. Yeah, I think you actually might have to. And I would love if anyone has any examples in the comments of where that hasn't been the case or where people haven't had to do that to at least either launch or sustain a viral moment. I would be really interested to see, and I genuinely want to see if there are many exceptions to this rule that I've seen, which is that we underestimate the fact that marketing is a compounding exercise. So when we talk about building a brand, when we talk about building a personal brand, it's actually not about like launching your YouTube channel and then getting 1 million subscribers on day one. I always say to people, don't even look at your numbers. Don't even try and seek that viral moment until you've done the groundwork. Foundation, because all of it compounds over time. And I think that's something that people miss a lot. It's also the case, other foundational things. I talk about email a lot. I talk about going where people are buying, and lots of people don't care about their emails. They'll say, is anyone reading them? Do I even need to set up all these automations? And I'm like, I can tell you consistently, D2C businesses, especially ones that are like purely D2C that are bootstrapped, 30 to 50% of their income is coming from their emails. Like, you need to have these longer form, and sometimes email isn't long form, but you just need to have these engagement platforms that don't, like, email's not as sexy as your TikTok or your Instagram because people can see that you've got so and so many followers. But the truth is that the people who are reading the emails, they care more and they're actually engaged. So don't get distracted by what looks cool. It's important. I want to do stuff that is cool too, but don't get distracted by it. Emphasis on the word distracted. We have to build the foundation simultaneously. So that's it for the first 3 pitfalls. We're going to come back next week for the next 3. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Disagree, got questions, let me know. I also make sure that I look at all of your comments and questions to figure out what we should be talking about next. How can I help you next? And what else we should be addressing?